On the fourth Sunday of Lent, we heard a rather lengthy account of the blind man healed by Jesus. When he's questioned by the Pharisees, he calmly tells them, "All I know is that I was blind, and now I can see." My own dad died 32 years ago this week, and as his anniversary comes close each year, one of my 6 siblings will text one another with a memory of our father. But what stands out for all of us is an image of him as a great reader. As we would lay on the carpet watching the console television, my dad would sit in his chair, and only his chair, and he would read. Most of the time, they were books about history, the United States history, about wars, about the military. But if there was fiction, it was a Western by Lou Lemur. Many of you Serrans can recall in the 60s and even in the early 70s, most of the television shows that were action were based upon life in the Old West. As they were replaced with medical, police, and detective shows and even sitcoms in the 70s, my dad seemed to cherish those movies and books about the Old West. And one of his favorite actors was Gary Cooper. Gary Cooper was a convert to Catholicism, and he was a close friend of the pastor of Good Shepherd Parish in Beverly Hills, Monsignor Sullivan. Monsignor recounted how Gary Cooper often spoke about as the deeper he became in love with his faith, with Jesus Christ and the church, he seemed more and more aware of just how that first half of his life, the pre-conversion part of his life, that he didn't really know what mattered in life. And he looked back with regret. He was always a humble man, and those familiar with life in Hollywood at that period of time said even for those high standards of morality, he lived a reputable life. But again, as a Catholic, he suddenly became more and more aware that life could have been better. Monsignor Sullivan told him that was understandable, because now he was seeing things through the eyes of faith, the light of Christ. And that was understandable. And that made sense to Gary Cooper. His Catholic faith gave him great strength, consolation, and peace. He developed cancer, and when Monsignor would visit him, he gave him a small crucifix. And he said, when the pain gets too intense, hold on to that crucifix. Join your sufferings with Christ. Again, that made sense to Gary Cooper. A reporter from the LA Times came to meet with him in his final weeks and noticed that he had that crucifix. The reporter, not Catholic, didn't know its significance. And later on, when interviewed, Monsignor Sullivan spoke about that gift of that crucifix and how much it meant to Gary Cooper, who saw things with the light of Christ. All I know is that I was blind and now I can see. Faith in Jesus Christ, faith in the light of the world, removes our blindness. I spoke to you early on about 2 books of Kevin Wells. This one, The Priests We Need to Save the Church. It's the first of books that I recommend to you, to the Serrans, part of your Lenten reflection and maybe even beyond. He has a chapter entitled The Eucharistic Glow. I'd encourage you to read this chapter slowly, especially as we enter more deeply into what we are calling here in the United States the National Eucharistic Revival. Kevin speaks of his uncle, Monsignor Tommy Wells, who was dedicated to a holy hour before the Blessed Sacrament, as Pope St. John Paul II, St. Teresa of Calcutta, and many saints and good holy people, lay people and religious do. When you and I go before the Lord in prayer, whether at home or in church, but especially at adoration, the blindness that we experience because of our busyness, the obligations and responsibilities of work and family, even our sin, that time before the Lord gives way to sight, the light of Christ. With just 2 weeks left of Lent, let us read again the passage from the 9th chapter of John and recount how often the light of Christ has enabled us to see the Father's love and mercy. And let us pray in a very special way that the light of Christ may help us to seek the Father's will and to do it each day. Again, to you, Serrans, thank you for your work, for promoting and praying for vocations of the priesthood and consecrated life. And let us pray together that this Lenten season may bring tremendous grace to all of us and to our church. God bless you.